welcome to yet another fabulous Linux Bandits, episode 2. Geez, it's been a long time since we've done one of these shows. We actually did it on G Plus last time, but we are here courtesy of the LDC, that is the Linux distro community, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to TotalOS today, my partner in crime, who will introduce us to our panel of guests. We're going to be speaking about SteamOS and its impact on the Linux community. Go ahead, Toss.
Thank you, Spatry. For tonight's show, we have Edge226, Iron Claw, Matthew Moore, of course, Spatry, Tom Prokes, and myself, Toss today.
All right, welcome one and all, and welcome to everybody who's also joining us. This is the reason we call this Linux Bandits is because this was totally unexpected. You know, I had no plans of doing a show this evening, and a bunch of guys just got together and we decided, why not? This is hot news that's happening in our world today, so we figured we'd share this. Before we get started on the conversation, let's introduce everybody that's on our panel. Starting with you, Edge, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been using Linux for about 12 years. I run cuttingedgelinux.com, and I have a YouTube channel that I haven't really done too much work on. I got to put some more work into that. But yeah, I help out in the Manjaro community a lot, and I love using Linux.
Hi, Iron Claw. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, not too bad. God, I've been using Linux for more years than I care to admit. I also have a YouTube channel that I haven't actually done anything with for a couple weeks now, and kind of came down with a cold. Other than that, I don't really have more to say.
Yeah, now, for those of you who don't know, Iron Claw is the go-to guy for gaming. So if you want to get games working in Wine or just getting some of those Linux ports working, you got to check out his show. Matthew, how's it going, buddy? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, I've been doing pretty good.
Yeah, now Matthew also has a show on YouTube. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I've used Linux since about 2006, and learning how to use it, I realized that it's not always easy, and many people keep asking me for help, so I started a YouTube channel, and basically my YouTube channel is dedicated to software tutorials, and I also branch out into Windows, Mac, Android, and the like as well.
All right, and of course, everybody knows me. I'm Spatry, and I am the YouTube miscreant. I've only been using Linux for 2 years, although I've got my first exposure to Linux back in 1998, and I've been jumping back and forth between Linux and Windows, but 2 years ago I decided to use it as my main operating system. And I figured, the best way I can learn about Linux is starting a YouTube show since I have all this multimedia experience. And believe it or not, the community has helped me quite a bit. I've learned an awful lot, and I'm just going to keep going because I love doing this. How you doing, Tom? Your turn.
Hey, how's it going?
So, Tom, you don't have a YouTube channel, do you? Or you do?
I do.
Oh, okay, cool. So what you been up to then?
I recently did one little video on some sudo apt-get stuff, but I've been kind of working on a lot of different distros, trying to find the perfect one.
And next we have TotalOS Today, your one-stop shop for dual booters. So if you're running Windows you're running Linux, you definitely need to check out his show. Tell us a little bit about it, Toss.
I do definitely dual boot between Windows 7 and even Vista. Couldn't quite get into Windows 8. I don't have a touch screen for Windows 8. I first started with messing with Linux, Ubuntu, back 2005, 2006 as a complete newbie dummy, stuff like that as a beginner. Back then, I didn't quite feel it was ready for prime time. That all changed after messing with Linux Mint and Zorn. I started again full-time, 2009, 2010. And because I started from scratch, and I know what it feels like to be, a dummy beginner, someone who needs help, something in the past, you may have done something, maybe gone to a forum that you may not have been treated with respect or the proper answer. Been there, done that. So briefly, TotalOS Today is total technology for newbies because we all start somewhere.
Yep, so that's Total OS and so Total BS, right, Toss?
It's funny you say that because
stable or horse stable?
Exactly. It used to be horse stable, but now it's stable. Yeah.
All right. Well, guess what, kids? Gabe Newell and Valve has been making a lot of announcements, and it was an interesting piece of video that I saw. He did, he spoke about Linux at LinuxCon. And that was in last week's News and Nonsense show that we did. And so now they put out some announcements. They put 3 major announcements up on the Steam website. And the first is they've announced SteamOS. Now, this is going to be a Linux-based operating system that's going to offer in-home streaming. So if you have a Windows, Mac, or any other computer, you can, stream games and applications into your living room. It will allow you to watch music, TV or movies in the living room, and they're going to be working with some of the media services to do this. Family sharing will become available, and they will have other family options on this. And something of great interest is this is a free and open sourced operating system. That's right. As a matter of fact, they announced that, they're going to have a download soon. It will be a free operating system forever. And not only that, it will also be freely licensable to system manufacturers. So they're going to have more details on this coming soon. So this is good news for the Linux community because, this is going to bring a lot of innovations to us. I'd like to believe that this is going to push manufacturers into making better drivers for Linux, because SteamOS will run on practically any computer like most Linux distributions will today. Maybe it'll also bring us more software. And of course, this could push developers into making games for Linux. Now, Edge mentioned earlier that there is a program called LEDWorks for building games on Linux. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I found the Kickstarter project, and I found it really interesting. And it is a system that is going to be offered on Steam, and it's making games for Linux in Linux instead of making your games in Windows and then porting them into Linux. It uses OpenGL by default, no more of this DirectX stuff. And I think it's going to totally revolutionize the way games are made on Linux, because you now have a lot of people that are able to then code the games for Linux because they're Linux users. And the big thing in the past with Linux has been that you had to dual boot to have your Windows games and your Linux games. Now there's going to be a lot more heavy development for Linux, and this goes into the Steam box and SteamOS, making games for that as well, just basically making it better for us on the gaming side.
Now, I can already say from personal experience just using the Steam client within Linux, and I have tried this on Linux Lite, which is based on Ubuntu, and I have tried it on Manjaro Linux, which is based on Arch now, that I'm currently running. And I'll tell you what, OpenGL delivers a magnificent gaming experience. And I couldn't believe how sharp these games look. Even some of my favorite games, the X3 series, looks incredible. And it performs so well. Ironclaw is also a gamer, and tell us what you think this could do for the Linux community in terms of gaming.
Well, hopefully it'll open a lot of doors. I mean, if people want to get published in the Steam box, they have to make something that runs on a Linux system if it's running SteamOS. So and, of course, hardware manufacturers would have to start looking at making their hardware work. So it could mean that hardware manufacturers would actually start, contributing to driver development instead of having, basically the Linux kernel team have to do everything themselves.
Matthew, what's your take on that?
Well, it'll certainly open up a lot of doors, and the fact that it'll be open source also opens up some doors for hardware manufacturers. For example, if you can consider a modern day gaming console, imagine open sourcing that, putting an open source bootloader on it, unlock it, and then have a user able to modify and customize their actual gaming console like they used to be able to do with a gaming PC. This really opens up a lot of doors, and I think it'll be really interesting.
And that is the exact point that Steam was making on their website. Yes, you will be able to modify the code to your liking to get the functionality that you want. And it is all about control. You are in control of your hardware, not somebody else. How do you see that, Tom?
How do I see that?
Rub rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
I love it.
That's exactly what the problem is. Proprietary this, proprietary that. They want it their way, not your way. I think it's great that you can actually manipulate and be in full control of your system. That is what freedom is.
Toss.
As a former PC gamer, I mean, I do dabble in games on the PC in both Windows and Linux. The Xbox 360 handles my needs. Now, why do I say that? Because, well, you mentioned stable versus horse stable. Stable meaning great and horse stable meaning horse doo-doo. The 360 just works. It's stable. I think gaming for Linux in the past, we can probably agree, wasn't quite up to par. It's gotten better. I think the fact that something like Steam and Valve and now the SteamOS, I think the future of gaming for Linux is completely stable. I think that may be one of the components for the future of the so-called Linux desktop, en masse. But, Spatry, if I was a PC gamer, gaming can be only as good as the hardware, as in video cards, as in video drivers. Now, you and I know in the past, as some may know, I haven't had very good luck with video drivers. It's gotten better, and I actually have drivers now installed, and it's terrific. But it can only be as good as the hardware that matches. And of course, we talked about, proprietary drivers and companies getting on board to release their code and this and that. But in general, I think the future of gaming for Linux is terrific.
Now, something that else they announced is the Steam machines. So this is going to be a unit that you would have in your living room where you could actually download these programs to, or alternatively, hook up your computer or device to it, and then stream video games to the device through your home network. So you wouldn't necessarily have to replace Windows on your main computer. You could, stream those games over to the box and play your video games in the living room, which I think is a swell idea. Plus, they also announced a controller to go with this. But the thing is, having the SteamOS operating system would not require you to actually buy this unit. You could actually, purchase a laptop, for instance, or build your own computer and have SteamOS on this, and then be able to use this for your gaming. We'll go ahead and we'll pass this over to Edge and give us your impressions or what you think about having a compact unit for computing.
Well, before we started the show, I actually looked up the Steam box, and I think it looks absolutely amazing. Also, being able to just plug a controller into your PC that you use every day and have that just work for gaming, that's an amazing thing. And it's gonna do a lot because not only are we at the point where the consoles are going to disappear, we're at the point where you can upgrade your gaming box instead of a new generation of console coming out. You just upgrade the hardware, and that's going to be a lot better for people.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that one. Iron Claw, your turn.
Well, I think it's pretty cool that you be able to basically choose your own hardware specs for your basically gaming console, because it'd also be a PC. And I think it'll pose some interesting challenges for the companies that make games for consoles, since they're always targeting, a very specific hardware platform, that now they'll actually have to generalize things a little more.
Matthew.
Well, with a more compact system like a console, think about gaming like a LAN party or whatever. You can take these very compact systems that pack a lot of power, a lot of portability, and they're customizable and they're open, and you can build your own way the software operates. And you could basically incorporate that into a community setting like LAN party without all the hassle that you would have with a full-blown PC. There's a lot of directions this can go.
Gotcha. Tom.
Well, if it can work on my Raspberry Pi, I'd be real happy.
I wouldn't be surprised if it would be able to do that, because we know the Raspberry Pi can already run distributions, lightweight distributions like Debian, and I think there are a few others that it'll run. So that could be a possibility. How about you, Toss?
Well, look, it's no secret that, size does not necessarily equal quality, but yeah, I'm all for something small and compact. I mean, I'm still somewhat amazed at the Xbox 360 Slim I have that they squeeze so much technology in a relatively small, lightweight box. So why not have a Linux PC or a Linux or a Steam box that's even smaller and more powerful at a reasonable cost? I think that's terrific.
Now, we all know Canonical has been trying really, really hard to get Linux into the mainstream. They're working on making a cross-platform, operating system that'll run on your desktop computer, your notebook computer, your tablets, and your phone, and being able to have a seamless experience. But the thing is, Valve is a much larger company. And I think they have a better chance of being able to pull this off. But what could this mean if they were to succeed with this? Could this potentially be a Microsoft killer? How about you, Edge?
Well, Steam's entire reason for doing this was because of Windows 8, and because Windows 8 was marketing games on their desktop. That's what came about Steambox and the SteamOS. And so, yeah, this is Steam's direct response to the things that Microsoft have done to try and take over the gaming experience on PCs. So I totally think this is going to be a big difference, primarily because, like I said before, the downfall of Linux used to be that, you needed to run a Windows dual boot, but now that's going away. You no longer need Windows to do the high-end gaming. You can now do it on Linux, and that's primarily because of Steam. Canonical couldn't get this through. No way they tried, they could get this through, but Steam is capable of doing it.
Our honorable Gen 2 user Armageddon wanted to throw in, quote, I believe that Valve is pressing the right honorable buttons. They were nice to the community, and the community has treated them nicely in return. I would have to agree with that. Let's go ahead and pass this over to you, Ironclaw. Do you think this could be potentially a Microsoft killer?
Yes and no. I think Microsoft has forgotten how they got to the dominant position they've enjoyed for the last couple of decades, and that was because of the openness of their platform and how easy it was for people to develop software on it, because they didn't try to control that whole thing. But when they decided to basically build a walled garden around Windows 8, and it threatened all of the software developers, they kind of asked for it.
Matthew.
I totally agree with what Ironclaw just said. The fact that Microsoft is straying away from their roots to some extent, I think developers are looking for a platform that is easy to develop on, and a platform that they have freedom where they can develop, take risk, and not be so worried that it's going to fail, because the open source nature of the Steam platform, if they don't quite get it right, well, there's somebody else there that can help them along. So I think this is might be a big blow for Microsoft.
Tom.
Yeah, I think everything ever manufactured eventually gets replaced by something better. I think Windows, in their way of doing business, I was highly offended by the 8 concept. I don't like the limitations with the special permissions, and even loading Linux on the machine itself is of extreme difficulty. I think that I would like to see them go away. It's a very complicated, old running, built on for years, and I think I see in the future tablets itself, and the old Windows heavy duty, you need high-end equipment to even run a lot of it now, and it's not like the days of XP anymore. So they, in turn, actually help create higher-powered machines, but the wattages that are being used to run their software isn't Energy Star efficient. So I just think it's time for them to go away and, something to move on. I mean, I see the future being bright in this area, and let it continue. I mean, everything changes, whether people like it or not.
Toss.
I believe the question was, do we have a Microsoft killer? Is this the question?
That is the question, and I think you know the answer to that one.
not being a PC gamer, as I stated, but in terms of the Microsoft world, as it were, my answer, in the short term, no way, not going to happen. When it comes to gaming, at least, I believe that Microsoft knows how to make and market games. Yes, Windows 8, it's something of a joke. It's optimized for touchscreens, and that's pretty much it. We all know that. But when it comes to gaming, I don't see them losing that much share right now. Short term, I say no way. Next year from now, you may have to ask me, but in the short term, I just don't see it happening, them losing their edge on gaming.
Okay, now, this is an interesting article, and I'm just going to read a portion of this to you guys from Tom's Hardware. Microsoft is keeping a very close eye on this possible Windows 8/Xbox One competitor. In a recent interview with Eurogamer, Microsoft Corporate Vice President Phil Harrison admitted that the company is going to keep a close eye on Valve Software Steam Machines initiative, as the Redmond company is gearing up to launch its third entry into the living room. Valve is shooting to invade the same space with its own Linux-based SteamOS platform. Steam controllers and hardware solutions supplied by Steam machines and participants. So yes, they are already feeling the heat on this. So they're thinking, now we've got Valve stepping in here. They did say Valve is a very impressive company, and obviously we're going to be watching what they do with great interest. Now, the thing is, we all know that gaming companies, will release a title and then maybe a month later release a title for Mac OS X. I've seen this happen with EgoSoft with the X series, and the X3 series of games happen to be my favorite games of all time. Well, let's suppose Steam is able to pull this off and get people to start using their consoles. And they decide, in order to push people to use their console, we're going to release this AAA title for Linux first, and then at a later time release the Mac OS X and Windows versions. Do you think that is a possibility that they may be able to do that? Or do you think it will cause an outrage? We'll start with you, Edge.
It is a possibility because Steam has a lot of pull on things, and if they want it to come to their stuff first, at the very least, their titles will come to the SteamOS first. It may not be all developers that do it this way, but we'll see what happens in the future on that.
PDQ is nodding her head in agreement here because she is stating that Gabe Newell and Valve have been talking about doing this work for 3 years now, and she is saying that she believes that Valve may have to actually do that, release titles for Linux first. So wouldn't this be a slap to the community if they were to release the long-awaited Half-Life 3 for Linux first and then make Windows and Mac users wait for that? Pretty interesting there. What do you think about that, Iron Claw?
Well, it would definitely be a turning of the tables, and I would see Valve would definitely have some incentive to do that once the Steam box is released, to get, adoption picked up a little more quickly.
Matthew.
Well, I think from a marketing standpoint, it would actually be a smart thing to do for them to release it on their own platform first, because that'll bring people to that platform. If the only place they can get the game that they want is on this new platform, then that's where they're going to go. And then everybody else becomes secondary after that. I think from a marketing standpoint, if they want to be successful, they probably should do it that way.
Tom.
Yeah, I think I agree with Matt. You know what? If you want to draw people in, make you number one, get people accustomed to your design and your layout, and otherwise they're just going to be a secondary company themselves. So they're going to bow to Rome. You know what? They should do their own thing, let people come, and actually that'll exploit the Linux market, I believe, to a great degree, which we all want, I think, right?
Toss today.
I've been thinking about this, and of course I run a beginner's channel, as you know, but we say the words Valve Steam box, to a beginner, this is like, why? Do I need to like steam clean my shirts or something? What Linux needs? Okay, or tire valve. To a beginner, they don't know. It's not their fault. We know, but they don't know. But the point I'm getting at, for this really to succeed and to really knock off Microsoft, Microsoft may be feeling the heat, but that doesn't mean that they're getting burned. At least not yet. Not yet. What Linux needs, in my opinion, gaming for Linux is something where, okay, for example, what game is the voice of Microsoft? Probably Halo, started over 10 years ago, worldwide hit. The Linux world needs something comparable where, ABC game is the exclusive title for Linux. You can only get this on your Steam box by Valve or whatever. I think for this to succeed, if the powers that be who run the Steam box, who make it, if they can pull off an exclusive high quality game that works out of the box, as we like to say, something that runs only in Linux or only on a Steam box, you can get it in Microsoft or on a Sony PlayStation, and the game is terrific and it works. Maybe I'm thinking out of the box here, maybe more like a visionary like Steve Jobs. I don't know. But as I see it, as a non-PC gamer, but if I wanted this to succeed, having an exclusive title that just kicks major you-know-what, that would really propel Linux gaming in the future.
Well, guess what, Toss? Armageddon just sent me an article from P4Rgaming.com. That is Play for Real. P4Rgaming.com, for those of you who are listening. And the article is titled, Valve officially passes on Windows 8, confirms Half-Life 3 is Linux exclusive. At the Ubuntu Developer Summit, Valve employee Drew Bliss said that Linux is a more viable platform for gaming than Windows 8. Gabe Newell, Valve director, has officially solidified Valve's stance on Windows 8 by announcing that Half-Life 3 is exclusive to Linux. So it stands to reason anything that is going to be released to run on Steambox will run on any Linux distribution that has the Steam client installed on it. So this is magnificent news if this is true. We'll start with you, Edge.
Yeah, I think that's totally awesome. They need more games than just one game, though. Primarily because not everyone is into first-person shooter games. I've played the Half-Life series, but I definitely prefer games like role-playing games and stuff like that. So having more than one exclusive to Linux would make them even better off.
I would have to agree with that wholeheartedly. Ironclaw, your turn.
I just drew a blank.
That's okay. It happens to all of us. Matthew.
Well, I totally agree that they probably need to expand a bit, but going back to what Toss was saying about having exclusive titles, if they want to push this thing as an open platform, having exclusive titles that are only available to that platform seems kind of counterproductive in the open way of doing things. But as far as being a successful platform, having choice and a variety of games available is going to be the key. I've seen this happen with a lot of mobile platforms, tablets, for example, where there are many great products out there, like BlackBerry's Playbook, for example, but it failed very, very quickly because the apps just weren't there for it. So Steam could make the best system in the world, but if these game titles just aren't there in availability, it's not going to be very successful. So they really need to get the titles on the platform.
Okay, now I got some messages on IRC stating that this article just may be like one of those like Onion news articles. So never believe everything you read on the internet. But the thing is, this is a possibility, though, that they could release titles for the Linux platform first before releasing to other platforms in the future. What do you think, Tom?
I'm not really sure. This isn't my area of expertise. I would think TotalOS might know more than me.
If we're talking if we're talking pure marketing here and you want the edge, okay, and this goes for any, Linux, Apple, whatever, Microsoft, if you want the edge in anything, in this highly competitive market, you need to have something that nobody else has. Okay, if this Half-Life 3 story is true, it's Half-Life 3. It's not coming soon, the game that'll blow you away, Half-Life or Half-Life 1. It's 3. It's been done before. Even if this was true and Half-Life 3 comes exclusive to Linux, it's been out already. It's got to be something new, something that no one's ever heard before. I'm not sure what kind of a title. Probably a shooter game. That seems to be popular. I'm not sure what the game would be about or what it would be called, but it would have to be something where, it's a brand new title, it's a brand new game, not available on any other platform except, we'll say, the Steam box or whatever, Linux Mint or Ubuntu, it really doesn't matter, but it has to be exclusive. The buzz got to get around that audience testing on this whatever game is terrific. It's one of the best, maybe even better than Halo, which I think is the best game in the world. If Linux can pull that off, then yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
Okay, I just have something to interject into the conversation.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys are aware, but Microsoft, when they have developers code for Microsoft, they actually take a percentage of their profits, whereas Steam doesn't. So that's a big incentive for the developers, and I think we'll have a lot more independent games to the Steam OS because of that.
Well, I think most console manufacturers, you have to pay some kind of royalty to publish on their platform, don't you?
I would think so.
Yeah, there are some kind of agreements. At least I know with the Microsoft Xbox 360 game, there are some, prearranged agreements and contracts signed before the game is actually even produced, probably, let alone when it comes out. If you remember, there was controversy with the Xbox One about not being able to trade in games or use games, and Microsoft backed out. So there's always some kind of negotiating going on, at least for Xbox games, and I'm sure it will be for any possible Linux gaming hits.
Well, obviously, if a company writes a piece of software, even for a Linux system, they'd get to choose the license it's released under. That's just how it is.
Okay, well, we've almost run out of time here, so before we close tonight's show, I'd like to pass the mic to everybody on our panel for final thoughts. What do you think that Valve is going to be doing for the Linux community in general? We'll start with you, Edge.
Well, I think we're going to see, as you've said, better driver support. I also think we're going to see a lot of indie titles come to Linux. So it may not even be a Valve title that ends up being the big Steam title. It may be another developer that makes that title, such as X3 or something like that.
Iron Claw.
Well, I think it's going to come down to performance, really. I mean, gamers are performance junkies. So if a gamer could see a 10% difference just from switching from Windows to SteamOS, then there's going to be a good response from the gaming community.
Now, Iron Claw, you have, played games on both Windows and Linux. Do you think that Linux has more punch? In terms of gaming power?
Well, they're definitely different under the surface. I mean, Linux was born on the network. It definitely has a wonderful network stack, great performance. With OpenGL, the graphics can be just every bit as stunning, and even running stuff through a translation layer, you can normally see better performance on a Linux system than you can on a Windows system when it's, software that's written for Windows in the first place.
And I will have to agree because I've experienced those same results myself. Matthew, what are your final thoughts on this?
Well, the performance, I think, inherently would be better on a Linux-based system because, well, if you're running Steam on a PC, there's a lot of overhead involved there, where if they're specifically making this OS for gaming, they could eliminate that overhead. And I think what Steam could bring to the table is, better driver support. They're definitely going to get more attention from commercial vendors that make these titles and submit them in other software packages, whereas possibly commercial companies never really gave Linux a fair shot before because they thought, there's no money in that platform. if they start to see companies like Valve and even Sony's PlayStation OS is based on BSD. So the open source is starting to become more viable for commercial companies. And I think Steam is just going to help push that along just a little bit farther.
Tom, what do you think that Valve is going to be doing for the Linux community in general?
I think it's going to open the eyes of many people that are unaware. I think it's going to bring a whole new paradigm and challenges to the corporate powers of Mac OS and Microsoft. So I think it's nice having a third-party contender, and I really hope they fulfill their promise.
Toss today.
Well, to all of the Linux game developers out there, let me just say that the Master Chief is watching you.
So my final thoughts on this are, yes, I agree that we're going to be, and it's not just about gaming. It's innovations that we're going to be getting. We're going to be getting better driver support for our hardware now, and this could also entice software developers like Adobe Systems, as an example, to start making applications that are native to Linux, because people may actually want to switch over to this powerful operating system. So this is, more than gaming. I mean, this is going to help Linux in general, I think. So this is a wonderful thing, and I think I'm not only for myself, but everybody on my panel and everybody is listening. We all want to hand a hearty thank you to Valve and Gabe Newell for doing this, because this is something we have been wanting for years. We wanted to have, Linux, better innovations for Linux, even though Linux has been getting those in our own right, but being able to have corporate backing from companies step in and developers stepping in and OEMs stepping in to bring new innovations, this is a wonderful thing. So, we embrace this. So it's job well done from Valve. And yes, I do hope they do decide to keep up with their promises. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about the game controller in depth, but they do have a game controller that they announced that's coming out. That's going to have a little touchpad and two directional pads on it. You can check out their website for more information on it. Personally, I have my own favorite gamepad, and everybody has their own different favorites. So, I don't know if I would embrace getting a new gamepad when my Logitech gamepad is freaking awesome. I wouldn't replace it for anything else in the world. Anybody want to touch up on the gamepad before we go? Edge?
I think having a gamepad come out will be good, because there's people that do all their PC gaming with the keyboard and mouse, and this just might be the step of, hey, it's going to be coded for Linux, all the drivers are going to be coded for Linux, I don't have to worry about the drivers, it's just going to work.
Iron Claw.
I'm actually going to have to plead ignorance on the gamepad. I don't really use them.
Matthew.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm more of a keyboard and mouse guy, but I think it's good that they're developing one that does open the doors for a lot of developers.
Tom?
I look at it as commitment towards making this work. So if they're willing to do something to make physical hardware to work with their gaming system, that tells me that they're serious and sincere about the situation.
Toss today.
Yeah, I mean, I use the wireless game controller, pad for the 360. But if there was an exclusive hot game for Linux in which you had to use a keyboard and mouse or whatever, I would not have a problem with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I'm a mouse and keyboard kind of guy, when I'm playing my PC games. So, but I do have a game controller as well that I love to bits, and I wouldn't want to replace it for anything in the world. It's a Logitech, and, there's a lot of game controllers out there that work beautifully on the Linux platform. But hey, something new on the block, that's always an added plus. Guys, we have run out of time. This has been an invigorating conversation. Edge, thank you very much for being on the show. Ironclaw, Matthew Moore, Tom Prokas, Toss today. And most importantly, I'd like to thank everybody who's been participating in the listening room. Got a huge list of people, even though this was a spur-of-the-moment kind of thing. And I'd also like to thank the Linux distro community in Voltham for having, for allowing us to have our shows here. Linux distro community is a great place where anybody can come and talk about Linux distributions, and open source. If you have any questions or problems with your Linux distro, you can always come in here, and there are always people in here that are friendly and always willing to help you. And then, of course, Edge, he works with Manjaro. I hang out in Linux distro community and Manjaro rooms when I'm on here. So if you ever see me on here and you have a question for myself, you can always ask me. I don't always know the answers, but I'm always willing to help, and that's the same for everybody that hangs out in here. You will never get anybody to tell you to RTFM. We will actually help you, solve those problems and that sort of thing, and that is the spirit of what we do here at the Linux distro community, because when we share knowledge freely, everybody benefits. Thank you, all of you, once again, and we will see you next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, UTC -5. The Linux distro community and Spatry's Cup of Linux will be presenting the Linux Zoo Crew live, and we will be discussing trusted computing. Is it good or is it evil? Join us then.